Om Sahana Bhavato Sahano Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are meeting after a very long time, and so before we continue from where we left off in our previous session on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, I will briefly recapitulate what we discussed in our previous class. We discussed about the Karana Sharira, which is also known as the causal body, because the causal body or the Karana Sharira is that aspect of our personality or the human personality which stores all the samskaras. The samskaras are stored in the causal body, and they are in potential or seed form. Though they don't have a big role to play, the main role they play is to, when the body comes back from its state of deep sleep and through the dream state goes back to the waking state, all the samskaras which were in potential form are activated. Not all of them. Some of them are activated. Some of them remain potential for a very long time. So, what actually happens when we are in deep sleep? So, the description of the causal body, as we as we compare the different Upanishadic utterances, the causal body is the experiencer of the state known as deep sleep. And for a moment, it faces a totally blank wall. Not that things disappear. For all practical purposes, other than all the autonomous functions of the prana and the sthula sharira, everything comes to a stop. The mind comes to a stop. There's no question of any mind or even the mm, even the sense organs. The subtle sense organs are put to sleep, as it were. It's like a blank wall. But it has been described as a state of unspecified ignorance. See, when you say ignorance, we mean we are ignorant of certain things. We are ignorant of the objects of the waking state, or we are ignorant of the objects of the dream state, which are imaginary, which are based on the previous experiences sometimes. So all these things are specific ignorances, but here its nature is best described. I mean, the deep sleep state is best described in all the scriptures try to describe it as a state of unspecified ignorance. There is ignorance, but what is that ignorance about? It's an unspecified ignorance. That is why when a person comes back from deep sleep and he passes through the dream or directly wakes up from the deep sleep state, he the ignorance which he had about various objects in the waking state and the dream state, they return. Dream state is a bit complex because in the waking state we have similar experiences, we have an idea of continuity when we wake up, but the same cannot be said about the dream state, because in the dream state we may have a dream which is totally unconnected with the dream I had yesterday or even a few minutes ago. So the dream state is more uncertain, though there is some deeper connection when we talk of our dream body and the dream state. There is some connection. It's not that it is random. It has something to do with our causal state and also the experiences of the waking state. The only thing is the coherence, the coherent state, the coherence that we observe in the waking state is missing. It appears to be incoherent, but similar lack of coherence can be found in the waking state. For example, a person is not in his right senses, not right frame of mind. He is not coherent. In fact, most of us can be said to be in different states of coherence. We are always not fully alert, even in the waking state. Though we say we are fully aware, but many things are going on in an unconscious way, even in the when we are fully awake or in the waking state. So apparently there is some kind of coherence, but we are not fully coherent unless we are 100% aware. We are totally aware of the present moment. It's only then we can say that we are really in the waking state. Otherwise, it's half dream, half daydream, and half waking. So there's a mixture always. We do not even know when we are in the waking state. When we lapse into some kind of dream awareness, you may call it daydreaming, but still, it's something that takes your attention away from the state of things, and that's when you lose your uh, the coherence which you observe in a fully alert and when you are fully aware of everything around you. We are always not in that state, even while we say we are in a waking state. So we oscillate between the waking and the dream. We gave the example of the Upanishad, which says like a big fish which is traveling, which is swimming, I mean, which is swimming in the river, and there are two beds. So we are oscillating between the waking state, which is the one bank, and the other bank is the dream state. And in between, for some time, it does not uh, bang against the side, the banks of the river, and it floats or it swims in the middle. So that is the state where it is in a state of deep sleep state. So that unspecified ignorance which the human personality experiences when he's in the dream state, when he's in the deep sleep state, is described as unspecified ignorance. So all he remembers when he gets up is, I slept happily. Of course, there is this feeling of bliss there. Though he says, I did not know anything, he is not sad that he was ignorant in that state. That ignorance, unspecified ignorance, brings a little, it gives you a sample of that bliss which is experienced in the Turiya state, which is the fourth state. So the person actually does not lose consciousness. He is conscious of the fact that he is sleeping. He has some unspecified ignorance, and he is, you may say, according to the proverb, ignorance is bliss, sometimes they say. In this case, it is literally true, because you're not, we are ignorant of many things in the waking state and the dream state which made you unhappy or which you made you suffer. Temporarily, you get a respite from those things and you experience a little bit of the bliss, which is our true nature, but it is not a full experience because the ignorance is still there. So, uh, it is very clear from the fact that though we do not remember how long we were in that deep sleep state, we definitely know the person when he wakes up, he can definitely tell whether he had a good deep sleep or not. He said, I slept happily. I slept with, uh, you may, lot of peace. That means I had the deep sleep state was more than the dream state. If you had a very disturbed sleep, that is, lot of dreams and nightmares and other things were occurring, even if you might have slept for 8 hours, maybe the deep sleep experience was not enough. Then you feel when you get up that you did not have the necessary deep sleep, the necessary amount of deep sleep, which is necessary not only for survival, but that little happiness, that bliss that one gets when one experiences the bliss that one experiences in deep sleep, even though it is out of some kind of unspecified ignorance, he misses. So that is why uh, the vague experience of bliss. I call it vague because, according to the Upanishads, the bliss that one experiences when one is fully aware and reaches the Turiya state, that is the state which transcends these three states, is cannot be compared. That bliss cannot be compared to the little amount of bliss, a sample of that bliss which we get in the deep sleep state. So the causal body. Now, how does Shankara describe it? Shankara, in his commentary on the Vivek Chudamani, we'll take the help of Vivek Chudamani, which is a Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana Granthas are books written uh, by many people have written. Vedanta Sara of Sadananda. Then we have this Vedanta Vivek Chudamani of Shankaracharya, which explains the Upanishadic terms, the basic terms which are necessary to understand Vedanta in a very simple way, so that it's known as a preparatory text. It's some kind of a preparatory text to the study of Vedanta. So in verse number 120 and 21, Shankaracharya, because the Karana Sharira has been defined by him, what exactly is the nature of the Karana Sharira. So apart from the fact that there is unspecified ignorance and a little bliss, here he gives a further explanation of what is the true nature of the Karana Sharira. He says, this undifferentiated avidya, unspecified ignorance, uh, what is the nature of this unspecified ignorance? He is trying to explain. It is characterized as the equilibrium of the three gunas. You know, we discussed about the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Tamas is that which makes you, which is represented as a force, that is a force of which makes you inert, which makes you inactive. And rajas is exactly the opposite. And sattva is the balance of the two. So, though the three gunas are there, in deep sleep, what actually happens is the gunas, they have their impact. When we are in the waking state, when we are in the dream state, either of the three gunas predominates. So if you are very rajasic, you feel very active, you feel like doing something. Yeah, if you are in a tamasic state for some reason, because of wrong food or because of wrong inputs that we have given to our personality, whatever inputs we get, maybe bad company, inert company. So tamas predominates. Sometimes we feel lazy, we feel inert, we don't even feel like thinking, we don't feel active. If, like inactivity, we just want to. And there is a lot of ignorance. Tamas is the state, the lowest of the three gunas, where the ignorance, the percentage, the preponderance of ignorance is more. So, but we are oscillating between these three forces. So every moment we are a combination, or the permutations and combinations of these three gunas make our personality change from moment to moment. But when we are in the deep sleep state, what happens to these three gunas? Shankaracharya says there is one way of describing what deep sleep is. In that state, the mechanism of Prakriti or nature is such that the causal body, in the causal body, whatever may be the balance of sattva, rajas, and tamas when you are in the waking state, in deep sleep state, they all are in equilibrium. That is why you get, there are no agitations of the mind, there are no agitations of the senses. Because that equilibrium, which is normally lost when we are in the waking state, it is also lost when we are in the dream state. And that is the result of all our misery, all our suffering, mental, physical, everything, even the imbalance of the prana and uh, its effect on the body and the mind. Everything is a result of this imbalance that uh, takes place in these three gunas. So this is a play of gunas. In Prakriti, the Prakriti has been defined as Trigunamayi, means it is made of three gunas in various permutations and combinations. And the combination of these three gunas will decide our personality, whether it is predominantly sattvic, is it predominantly rajasic. Nobody is fully sattvic or fully rajasic or fully tamasic. Different moments of life, some guna predominates and we feel the whole equilibrium is disturbed. So he says only in the state of deep sleep we get joy because there is an equilibrium. It is a state where the three gunas are perfectly balanced. So that is why, again, the second part of the definition says, uh, profound sleep or deep sleep is a special state of the human personality in which the functions of the mind and organs are suspended. So the functions of the mind, either the mind is happy or sad or gloomy or intensely active, all these different states in the waking as well as in the dream state, which is nothing but an extension of the waking state, that functions are still active. Maybe in the dream state, they are not as active. The gross senses are not active because obviously when you are dreaming, but still you have a dream mind, a dream, you may say dream or sense, all the sense organs are active in a very subtle way. So though you don't see physically, your eyes may be closed, but the dream eyes, the eyes which see the subtle things based on your past memories, they are active. So they can recreate a waking state like situation in the dream, though it is, as I said, not as coherent as the waking state. So that is why we see all sorts of connections happening in the neural system, and dreams are apparently not connected to each other. They are sometimes some people have fantastic dreams, which are definitely not possible because uh, there is a kind of uncertainty in that state. The memories are there. The memories of the waking state are still, they are in seed form, in potential form, and then they recreate a dream world which which has nothing to do, very often it has nothing to do with the waking world, though some of the experiences are mixed with some other experiences and there is a random mixing, and that is why there is so much of confusion. But in either case, as this Vedanta, this Vivek Chudamani Shankaracharya says, the functions of the mind and in the organs, either gross in waking state or subtle in dream state, are totally suspended because there is an equilibrium. If there is an equilibrium, you don't have thoughts. Everything is goes back to its original nature. Though you call it unspecified ignorance, in the deep sleep state, the mind and organs are suspended. But uh, only thing that is active, if you have observed, that is why we say in the Turiya state or in the state of Samadhi and deep sleep state, in both the cases, the organs are suspended. The activities of the organs are suspended. But what is the difference? The difference is in Samadhi, the prana, the life force, and its impact on the body, that is also suspended, which is not suspended in deep sleep state. All our functions, the heartbeat, the circulation, everything, blood pressure, the breathing, everything continues. The autonomous nervous system is not put to sleep. That is the basic difference. So in Samadhi, what happens, and I told this that many of the people, when they were in Samadhi, for example, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you will find Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar was, when he saw this state, he could not believe his eyes. Medically, it is not possible. So he took his stethoscope and being a medical, I mean, a doctor, he decided to see if there was any sign of breathing. The pranas were totally suspended. You see, in deep sleep, the prana is not suspended. The organs and the mind are, the activities of the organs, sense organs and the mind are suspended. But here, When Mahendralal Sarkar went and even tried to find the heartbeat, it was not there. So, can there be a state? This is proof that, and it has been recorded. He said, medically, I would have had to declare this person as dead, but then he suddenly comes back. He comes back in the sense, uh, whenever he was in a state of suspended animation, that is the prana and everything was suspended, they were afraid to declare him dead. So they would normally call a Ayurvedic doctor, because in Ayurveda, they have ways to determine whether that prana has left the body, the pranamaya kosha or the prana sharira, uh, pranamaya atma, or you can say. We discussed that in great detail: annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya, vijnanamaya. Now we are coming to the anandamaya kosha or the karana sharira. So the gross prana, if it stops, then what is the difference between death and samadhi? The only difference is, of all the five pranas, that is what the Ayurvedic doctor used to observe when he was asked, see, he is not coming back to his senses. Is he alive? Because many times they were afraid whether he has left the body, whether the prana has left the body. So among all the five pranas, they say Udana is the last prana, and Udana is the prana which is responsible for our body temperature, to maintain the body temperature at a particular uh, temperature, fixed temperature, no matter what the external temperature is. The pranavayu is working, functioning throughout the day, night, constantly trying to maintain our temperature at an equilibrium level. It's at fixed temperature, say 98.7 degrees or something like that. But during this samadhi, the body would very often be very cold. So the only way to determine whether Sri Ramakrishna was in samadhi or has he really left the body was to touch the Sahasrara. That is what Ayurveda is the only way one can determine, was to find out if there is any heat left here. That does not leave. That is the junction where when the prana permanently leaves the body and the body becomes cold, there's no way that prana can enter back. So we declare the person to be dead. So Ayurveda has their own system. So when Mahendralal Sarkar was not able to, because he says, according to allopathy, I have to declare this person dead. I can't see even the reflexes and the retina. When you open the eyes, you put some light there. The reflexes are, even those reflexes were that of a dead man. So how do you explain? How does he come back? How does the prana enter the body? So all these things uh, indicate that there is definitely a state beyond deep sleep. In deep sleep, all our pranas function as they used to function when you are in the waking or the dream state. Only thing, they are in equilibrium. That is why we are in a state of good health when we are in deep sleep. But if the mind is agitated in the waking state, then it leads to various psychosomatic diseases, because the impact of mind on prana and the prana on the body results in a lot of anxiety, worry, and the bodily functions are affected. A lot of diseases can be traced to imbalance in the prana, and that imbalance can be traced to the mental states. But here in deep sleep state, because the mind does not exist, the subtle forces prana also is in a state of equilibrium. That's why Shankaracharya says, in that state, the three gunas are in equilibrium. So if they are in equilibrium, the body, if we could extend the deep sleep state, then the health can be, at least we can maintain a status quo. And the health will go on without any hindrance. The healthy state of the body and the prana, because it is a state of equilibrium. The uh, equilibrium is disturbed when we wake up, and then we react. Our reactive mind becomes very prominent. We react to external inputs, external sense inputs, and we react in a very uh, disturbed manner. If we are very calm and we are non-reactive, in the non-reactive mode, then our the prana is not agitated so much. But you see, if we react to everything that happens outside, then there's pranic imbalance happens, and then it affects the body, it affects the mind. The mind has an effect, and even imbalance in the body and the prana can affect the mind. It works both ways. So here, Shankaracharya says, in profound sleep or in deep sleep, this all kinds of specific cognitions, the cognitions that we have, the reactive mind, which is always receiving inputs, is stopped. For some time, you, as it were, switch off, like when the mobile is on, there's so much of distraction. So sometimes you decide you put it in a sleep mode. So at least it doesn't disturb you. Similarly, in the deep sleep, it's a function of the body. It's not that we voluntarily go into this deep sleep state. We try to go, but many things, agitations, the way we are living our life in the waking state and the way we are, our dream life is agitating our minds, reduces the content or the quantity of the deep sleep state, and that's why we get disturbed when we don't get that deep sleep state. So the cessation of all kinds of specific cognitions is possible only through meditation. Why do we meditate? Why do we reduce? Why do we say that we have to withdraw from external pratyahara? In yoga, there is this step. We say pratyahara, withdraw our mind, at least allow the mind to be steady, to be calm. Because if we further add more and more agitation, then it affects not only our waking state, it goes down as memories and it disturbs our dream state, and then it reduces our deep sleep state. So that is the idea, that a good meditation is equivalent. So in his Raj Yoga, Swami Vivekananda said that 15 minutes of meditation is as effective as 1 hour of good sleep. So you can compensate. If a yogi can meditate properly and he really enters into a conscious deep meditation, then he does not need this unconscious deep sleep. So this deep sleep, because it is unconscious, though it is joyful, it is blissful, and we always hanker for this deep sleep state. But still, because it is born out of ignorance, an unspecified ignorance which results in deep sleep, whereas meditation is a conscious stilling of the mind. It is like inducing deep sleep while you are still in the waking state. You are in the waking state, and you, by the force of your willpower is used to stop the waves of the mind. See the difference between deep sleep and the meditative state. Why a meditative state is considered to be more effective than a deep sleep? In deep sleep, the mind is not functioning. Okay. Even in meditation, the waves of the mind is not functioning, means the waves of the mind are stopped. You are just aware. You are aware, the thoughts become less and less and less. Meditation means you just uh, reduce the turbulence of the mind, reduce the thought waves, calm it down in such a way that you, as it were, go into that deep sleep state while you are still awake. That's the subtle difference. That's why when you are consciously meditating and consciously you reach the meditative state, which is similar but not same as deep sleep, because even in the deep sleep, involuntarily the mind is not active. Whereas here it is a voluntary thing. You are consciously controlling the mind in such a way that it is, you withdraw the senses with your willpower, you withdraw your thoughts, don't allow the thoughts to disturb or create turbulence in your reactive mind. So that is why they say the difference between is, all deep sleep is the cessation of all kinds of specific cognition in which the mind remains in a subtle seed-like form. So, unlike in samadhi, where the samskaras are destroyed, in deep sleep, what happens is everything goes into the causal body, the karana sharira. So you may find that in a deep sleep state, the person is so innocent. In fact, if you see a person who is in deep sleep, he looks like a baby. Oh, he's not capable of doing anything now. But when he gets up, where does all the things say a violent person? When he's sleeping, you don't see any impact of all the samskaras which are hidden in potential form in the karana sharira. So the subtle seed, because they are subtle and because they are not manifesting themselves, we think that person is quiet in just as he is quiet in deep sleep state. But when he wakes up from nowhere, from this karana sharira, that is the causal body, the samskaras are triggered, they are activated, and suddenly that person who gets up suddenly goes back to his original disturbed state, and then you find this was the person was so calm and he was in such a nice state when he was sleeping, but then he regains his turbulence, the mental turbulence. That is because of the samskaras. So they say, I mean, the Vedanta, the Vivek Chudamani says, in dreamless sleep, that means deep sleep, in the Sushupti Avastha, the mind is reduced to the causal state. Temporarily, mind you, unlike in Samadhi, it is a permanent change of our causal body. In this, temporarily, it is reduced to a causal state, and uh, the organs and the sense organs and the mind and all, temporarily they are put to sleep. They are made inactive, but not for long. As long as the deep sleep state lasts, these samskaras which are lying in the causal body, that is why they are known as karana sharira. Means if an effect has to be produced in the waking state, it has to have some cause. So karana means seed. If there is a seed, there will be a tree. Though apparently we don't understand that there is a big banyan tree hidden in the small seed. But when you plant it, when you nourish it, it grows into a big tree. Then you wonder, where was this tree before? It was hidden in the seed. Similarly, till all the seeds of our karma, which are stored in the causal body, are destroyed, you don't enter the state of samadhi, where there is no scope of these samskaras coming back. That's why they say, yeah, the difference between deep sleep, where the mind does not function, and the samadhi state, where the mind also does not function, the difference is when a person comes back from deep sleep, if he was a fool before he entered deep sleep, he will come back as a fool. He will not come back as an intelligent person. The foolishness he had before going to deep sleep, that foolishness is not apparent when he's sleeping, but when he wakes up, he gets up with the same idea, same thought, same samskaras. So, Swami Vivekananda says in his Raj Yoga, the difference between samadhi and deep sleep is a fool goes into deep sleep and comes back a fool, whereas somehow by sadhana, if a ignorant person goes into the state of samadhi through his meditation, through his sadhana, when he comes back as a wise person. And you see in the great saints like this Valmiki, Tulsidas, and all, you will find that this transformation was quite sudden. It's not necessarily a gradual transformation because they had lot of good samskaras in the causal body, which were covered with ignorance. So people thought, how could this Tulsidas, who was such a worldly person, just one scolding from his wife, he developed so much vairagya and then he became a totally different person. So you may wonder, he was a few days before he was apparently so worldly, and now he has become a saint. So it's not something, the sudden conversion is not very common, because in these great people, in Valmiki also, he was a robber, and then he goes into that meditative state. When he comes back, he is that great Rishi Valmiki. So the explanation that is given is that in that Karana Sharira, the seeds which were responsible for coming back to the waking state as an ignorant person has been destroyed. So Patanjali calls it Dagda Bija, the burnt seed state. They follow a different paradigm than Vedanta. They say, as a result of sadhana, it is not enough if you control your mind. The subtle in the Karana Sharira, that potential samskaras which are in seed form, you have to burn them at the source, so they never germinate, or they don't they don't be, they can never be activated. So they say, like the example is given, that if the seeds are dry, maybe you can keep them on your shelf for a very long time, and afterwards, when there is water and when there is right nourishment, you just plant them, they grow. Whereas if you burn the seed, then no matter uh, what kind of environment you give it, what kind of nourishment you give it, that burnt seed is gone. It will never germinate into a plant or a tree. So similarly, the Dagda Bija, in the dreamless state, our seeds are temporarily in potential form. The thoughts, the samskaras, and all the tendencies. The samskaras are defined as inherent tendencies. So they are inherent, they are not manifesting themselves as tendencies. That is why we find that uh, suddenly, there are changes in a person. When everybody is born, the child apparently is very ignorant, he is full of innocence, is because most of the samskaras, according to Patanjali, are in sushupta form, they are in seed form, they are in this causal state. Deeply, you may say, they are not manifesting themselves. They have not started germinating. They are still in a dry seed form in the causal state. But when the person wakes up from this deep sleep state, that is why we explain that a fool comes back as a fool, because the organs with all their characteristics, all their gunas which they had before they went to deep sleep, uh, they come back in the waking state, and then they manifest themselves as they manifested themselves before he went to deep sleep. There's not much change. So if you somehow, if you induce, some people sometimes they don't get good sleep, and they have to take sleeping tablets temporarily. That apparently uh, the problem seems to be solved. We put him in, give some tranquilizers, and but it's not a permanent cure, because the samskaras are not destroyed. Temporarily, you're not allowing the seeds or the thoughts of the which are in the causal state, in the deep sleep state. You have forcibly induced deep sleep in that person, and you're not destroyed. That is why they say yoga is the only way where you can burn those samskaras and not allow them to create problems when you come back to the waking state. So now, what is the process? How it awakens? Yeah. How does it come back? So as a person wakes up, this is a very interesting thing, which Vivek Chudamani explains, that this cycle of waking state, then we go into dream state, or even in the waking state, daydreaming, which is also a kind of dream state, because we are not fully conscious. We are apparently conscious, we are apparently wakeful, but we slowly, that's why they call it daydreaming. At night you sleep and then you dream, but sometimes when you are very tired and you're just sitting on a chair, you may have this daydreaming, which is not a waking state because you're not fully conscious. Your mind just wanders here and there. And then suddenly somebody wakes you and then you realize, oh, I was just daydreaming. So, in these states, as a person wakes up from deep sleep, now say that the person is so tired that from waking state he has gone into a dream state and finally somehow naturally has fallen asleep, not forcibly using drugs or tranquilizers. So when he wakes up, what is the process? Because we are oscillating between these three states. So they have made a deep analysis. They say when the person wakes up, the mind and the organs with all their previous characteristics, not that the characteristics had vanished, they were suspended. For some time, they were suspended. They emerge and they were not only suspended, they should have a place to store. Like in a computer, when you switch off, the question may arise, where does all the data go? If it had vanished every time you switched on, you would have had to insert a pen drive or some data again. But somehow, in the hard disk, even if there is no power, it has gone into a deep sleep state. The computer still, when it wakes up with all the data which is somewhere hidden. Similarly, they say the in deep sleep state, all the characteristics, good or bad, which you have gathered in your waking state and the dream state, they emerge slowly from the causal body when you just wake up from deep sleep. The first thing that awakens is the ego consciousness. Because in deep sleep, your ego is also not there. You are neither angry. We discussed it, one Upanishadic verse, I don't remember, a few classes, in our previous classes, we discussed. They were describing the deep sleep state where one is neither angry nor happy, nor, of course, that bliss is there, but all anger and all because of the lack of ego. Who is there to become angry? That ego is absent. So the first thing, even before the mind becomes active and the sense organs become active, and you realize that you have just come out of, that's why in some children and or even adults, if you are just come out of deep sleep, not through a dream, directly from deep sleep, you are suddenly woken up. You might have observed this phenomena. It takes some time to register where are you, especially when you are traveling. We go and sleep. We are used to a particular room, a particular bed. But when you are in some other place and you have suddenly fallen asleep and somebody comes and violently shakes you, that's why they say don't allow him to slowly come back from deep sleep to dream, and then from dream and slowly the sense organs require some time to uh, gather that, I mean, gather itself and develop that awareness, and then it realizes, oh, I am in such and such hotel. I was no doubt, but temporarily the individual personality has forgotten because the ego consciousness first comes, rises. He is aware, he is just aware that I have woken up. Then the mind has not yet functioned. That is proof that the mind and the sense organs are not able to recognize where he has woken up. He has gone to sleep and it takes some time. See, the sequence is first the ego or the ego consciousness, according to Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya says the ego consciousness is the first. You first are aware that now I am awake. But then, where am I? Where have where did I go to sleep? And where have I? There is a small gap. And then the functions of the mind are activated. Still, the organs, that's why it may not register many things. It may not recognize because it is in a different place. The lights, the bed, everything seems to be different. But the mind is the second thing to come to consciousness. The consciousness of the ego is the first, that now I am not asleep. When it was fully deep asleep, it had the ego consciousness The consciousness was there, but the ego was not there. Because the ego was not there, you really enjoyed the bliss. The moment your silly ego or our silly ego comes, it is then with all its uh, mental states and with all its characteristics, it wakes up. And then the functions of the mind, and then in the next stage, the functions, the organs, the subtle organs and the gross organs uh, emerge. So the causal body, according to Vivek Chudamani, the can you go? Yeah. So the causal body is designated as this is a technical term. It is known as Anandamay Kosha. We discussed the four koshas. One is Annamay Kosha, the physical body, the vital forces, the prana, the heartbeat and the circulation, the breathing, and many functions which are necessary for the body to function, the pranamay kosha or pranamay sharira. Then we said manomay kosha, that is the mental sheath, the lower mind, which is a reactive mind, which does not have the capacity to take decisions. Then we discussed in great detail the Vijnanamay Kosha, which is the higher mind, which can make decisions based on the experiences. The lower mind we share with animals. It is just a reactive mind. There are inputs and we react to that. It's a very, very rudimentary kind of mind. But the Vijnanamay Kosha is a highly developed mind where the buddhi has been awakened. We discussed that. Finally, the causal body or the Karana Sharira is also known, if we divide the body into five uh, personalities, that is Anandamaya, the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. The causal body or the Karana Sharira is compared to the blissful sheath, and that's why it is called Anandamaya Kosha, because in that state, because of absence of thought, because of absence of a agitated mind, because any mind, if it is agitated and if it is restless, it is definitely, the more restless it is, the more suffering, the less joy there is. The joy, the bliss that Anandamay Kosha experiences is because of absence of the mind for that small period. Though the period is very small, deep sleep is a state which is very rare. Most of our time is spent in dream state, which is not a very blissful state, depending on what kind of dream we have. So it is this blissful sheets because it it is nearest to the self. See, when we go from gross to subtle, the Anandamaya Kosha is so near the Atman or the self that it reflects more of that Ananda of the Sachidananda or Sat, that is eternal existence, eternal consciousness, eternal bliss. So if the nature of the Atman, about which we discussed first, before we started the discussion on the fivefold classification of the body, we discussed the nature of the self. That we spent almost 4 or 5 classes discussing that. So Ananda was one part. We came to the generalization. Vedanta says the best definition. I also quoted to you from David Bentley Hart, who compared all the religious systems. He was a theologian. He said the best definition of God or reality is existence, consciousness, bliss. He is not speaking from the Vedantic point of view. He made a detailed study. He said these are the common things which you will find in all religions and all systems of thoughts. They agree upon one point, that the true nature of eternal eternity or reality, God, truth, whatever name you may give it, is Sat Chit Anand. He doesn't use these words. He says existence, consciousness, and bliss. That's the best definition of God or truth, according to him. No matter which religion you follow, He says this is the best possible explanation, though the terminology is different. We use different words in different religions, but the idea that in nirvana, in salvation, in moksha, or kaivalya of the yogis, whatever be that highest state, everybody agrees on one point, that it is Sat, that is, it is eternal existence, eternal consciousness, and undivided bliss. But unfortunately, a little of that undivided bliss is only reflected in the deep sleep state. That is why, and the reason is because of its proximity to the self. Because it is the most subtle layer of our personality, the Satchidananda is reflected more. That is why, not that if you are in the Anandamaya Kosha, say for example, does it mean that if you are always in deep sleep, uh, have we realized the truth? No, far from it, because there, the envelope of ignorance is still there. The difference between deep sleep, otherwise, there are certain schools, you will be surprised to know, in India, which they say if you go delve deep into the phenomena of deep sleep, they compare that with samadhi. They say, what's the difference between deep sleep and samadhi? Which is not what Vedanta says. It is totally different. If deep sleep was samadhi, then people would have enjoyed, because that person who's sleeping well, there are people who can sleep very well, who have very good deep sleep. They are not very wise people. If by that logic, there are some people, normally people who are very ignorant, or they are carefree, they have good sleep, isn't it? You might have observed. But that doesn't make him a wise person. You see, he sleeps like a child. We compare that person like a child. Child sleeps nicely. Most of the time he's sleeping, isn't it? Yes. He sleeps nice. They have more sleep than us, definitely. That is because their minds are not complicated. They have that inherent purity, the mental waves, the potential, the causal state has not been awakened. As it grows, the circumstances rob him of that innocence, ignorance. And then he starts going, he desires to go back to that childlike state. So spirituality, it's one of the best definitions of, in Jnana Yoga, Vivekananda once said, he made a very fantastic statement. He said, when a child is born, he is born with all the innocence. And then he says, nature or prakriti or the world robs that poor child of his innocence, makes it complicated. And spirituality is nothing but an effort to regain that innocence. So as Jesus said, be ye like children, then only the kingdom of heaven will be opened unto you. Why did he say, why should we be consciously try to be free from all the complexities? So it's a reversal of the whole process. Our education is, unfortunately, the child grows to become a very complicated person, and then he has to reduce the complications, follow the same steps, and go back consciously. Child is unconsciously happy. Unconsciously he's happy because he's not exposed to all the complexities of life. But once we make him all the potential, of course they are there. That is why Patanjali says the innocence is just an apparent innocence. That same child can become a Hitler, isn't it? Hitler was also apparently was very innocent when he was children. They all, maybe he was playing with other children. Nobody saw a potential Hitler in him. The Hitler was hidden in the Karana Sharira, according to the causal sheath. So they were not exposed. He didn't get a chance to, as a child, maybe nobody noticed the type of uh, ambition, power, and all those things which were hidden in him. But when the right environment, or the right or wrong environment was suitable for the samskaras to develop, then it comes out. So its innocence is not real innocence. It is innocent because everything is subsumed in that Karana Sharira. That's why this idea of Karana Sharira uh, is a very, very, you may say, it explains not only the karma theory, which Buddhists, Hindus, and also Jains believe, because, and even the Sikhs, they also believe. So the cause and effect, that there cannot be any effect, there cannot be any karma, any action in our waking state which does not have a sanction from our Karana Sharira. Karana means cause. So without cause, there is no effect. Science accepts this. Science will never believe anything if you say this is uncaused. Even a fire, for a fire to be lit, there has to be a cause. Something has to be ignited, isn't it? So effect without a cause is not accepted by science. So true spirituality says just blaming or just telling that God is, I mean, it's all God's wish. Yes, it is God's wish, but still behind his wish is this cause and effect theory. That's why Buddha refused to enter into any discussion about God. He said, then you'll put the whole blame on God. If you are the maker of your own destiny, it's your karma, it's the cause and effect. If you want to change the effect, change the cause. As simple as that. You don't need, of course, yeah, that is one way of looking at things, but the idea of God also can help in removing this karma. But the point is, it all our actions, all our impressions, inherent tendencies are stored somewhere deep, and according to Vedanta, it is stored in the Karana Sharira. So, then what happens? What are the other things that happen? In Vedanta Sara, which is also one of the preliminary texts on Vedanta, he says, not only does he have a kind of unspecified ignorance, otherwise deep sleep would not be sought by people. Why do people hanker after sleep? If a person is deprived of sleep for a long time, he just wants to go and sleep, get his quota of sleep. The reason is that there is happiness. They say because nobody will go into deep sleep to just enjoy ignorance. Unspecified ignorance is not the reason why we hanker for sleep. Along with Vedanta, Sara says that he also perceives unspecified happiness. It's not total happiness like bliss of Brahman, but it is some unspecified happiness. You don't know why. You are just happy. You ask a person who has slept well, he'll say, I slept well and I'm happy because of that. Why are you happy? Did you get anything? Normally, we don't get anything after deep sleep. We are the same. But you still say he will not exchange good deep sleep for anything else. If you say that I'll give you a lot of money, but you sacrifice your sleep, he won't. So, no, I want my deep sleep because it gives him that unspecified happiness. He doesn't know where the happiness is coming from ignorantly. So, that happiness is coming from within only, from the very nature of his self. But unfortunately, he doesn't know it. That's why Vedanta Sara says that along with indefinite or unspecified ignorance, there is unspecified happiness which he wants to enjoy, which he has experienced, and that memory remains. So every time he enjoys deep sleep, next time he wants again to enjoy that deep sleep. So again and again he wants that experience. So that is why he says, Vedanta Sara in 39, he says, when he wakes up, if he were not aware of the happiness, then he would not have said, I slept happily. That memory is still there. Otherwise, while waking up, if you ask him, did you sleep? He will say, no, I didn't sleep because I didn't experience that happiness. But because I experienced the happiness, you immediately, even though it was out of ignorance that you enjoyed that happiness, you still say that I had a very good sleep. You have a very strong memory when you wake up. So, similarly, there are many other factors We have, it's almost time. You can have, because this is a big thing. We'll just have some question answers. Are there any questions? Oh.
Sleeping. You're talking about what about sleepwalking? What is that?
Sleepwalking is dream. It's another form of dream. Sleepwalking means you have gone to sleep and a part of your mind has woken you up. In dream, what happens? Dream, you go do fantastic things in dream. But here, your dream is, I mean, it is a disease, you may say, because that dream does not, the dream agitates your muscles and your nervous system. It's definitely not a very common thing. Sleepwalking. Everybody doesn't. So, during sleepwalking, your dream experience is so real for you that in your dream you simply get up. Yeah, your willpower gets attached to that dream, and you start actually walking. People do sometimes drive also. I've heard that they can drive the car. Huh? Hmm. Transformation. Yeah.
Is that transformation purely from environmental factors or
Hmm. Environment, of course, has a big role to play. For example, it's not purely environment because my point was in the Karana Sharira, the samskaras which I said, the causal, uh, all your past experiences which were in seed form. So the question is, for the online people, I'll just repeat what you said. They might not have heard. The question is like people like Valmiki and who else? Tulsidas, where a sudden transformation was seen. What is the reason? So one of the answer to this question is these people, the effect that you saw, that Valmiki becoming a sage, Tulsidas becoming a saint overnight, not overnight, he had to, his attitude changed, but he still had to work, is because of the preponderance of lot of good samskaras which had not fructified in their life. They were there hidden. Only the bad side of those people was being activated, and the society saw them as worldly people or robbers or whatever it is. But that was coming to an end, that samskara, and all that was needed was one push, which happened in both the cases, where the huge amount of good samskaras which were lying latent, they suddenly started manifesting themselves. So they not that they didn't deserve. It's not that they all the old evil samskaras. They had little evil samskaras which were being shown, which were being expressed, and so the people thought there is a transformation. But in the causal, because the cause was there, only they were waiting for the right environment. Sometimes the environment can be unfavorable. In Tulsidasa's case, for example, in both the cases, it was the scolding they got or the disappointment they got from their own family members that made them. So sometimes the negative things help you to change your. In what happened in Tulsidasa's case, it was a very strong scolding from his wife, who said, "See, the attachment you have for me, if you had for Rama, you would have realized him." So that suddenly it struck him. He said, "Yes, what she says is right." But she had to say it. It was very unpleasant. Imagine a wife scolding her husband. Similarly, with Valmiki, he was thinking that I am looting people and creating a lot of wealth for my family and they should be grateful to me. So Narada just tells him, ask them whether they support your actions, whether they will take your karma. You are robbing for them, but do they agree? So Valmiki goes to the father and mother, old parents were alive, his wife was alive, children were alive. None of them accepted the responsibility. They said that is your problem, how you earn money. If you are earning money by evil means, the karma will go to you. Why should we suffer for that? He said, will you share my sins because I'm earning for you? So that was a shock. He said, if they are not sharing, they are taking all the advantage, and been made the scapegoat. So that scolding or that refusal, that ill treatment he got from his parents, his wife, he said, nothing doing. I'll have nothing to do with them. So he left. And then he found that all this, but that bad samskaras which he had, they had been exhausted. The explanation that is given is he had many good samskaras which were waiting to manifest itself, and the wife and the parents and the children became the causes. Their scolding or their refusal, the shock that he got from them, uh, uh, induced the good samskaras to come up. He said, now I'm nothing to do with these people. I'll go and I would rather repeat Rama's name, and that's how he became Valmiki and wrote Ramayana. What else? Hmm. Oh, Samadhi, you don't have to teach anything. Nothing is left. And the question is, can one teach in sleep? Obviously, you can't. You can't. Or even in Samadhi, what is there to teach? If you reach Samadhi, that's the end of it. All your teaching and learning and all those relative knowledge goes away. But in deep sleep, the only thing that deep sleep teaches us that it is a joyful state. And if a person is wise, if he goes deep into the phenomena of waking, dream, and deep sleep, he will say that if deep sleep is a happy state, and if he tries to find the reason why he's happy in deep sleep, because his mind is under control, mind is not restless, then it will teach you indirectly. If you meditate on sleep, that is what happened in the case of Swami Turiyananda. He read the Upanishads. He wanted to observe what happens when one goes into deep sleep. He wanted to study the phenomena of deep sleep. Why we get joy when we are in deep sleep. So if you analyze, that is how the Upanishads analyze human personality with the help of, not with the help of books or academic knowledge, but with the help of day-to-day experiences. So nature teaches us many things if we just keep our eyes and ears open and you use our wisdom. So if a simple person without any philosophical background, he just questions, or if he understands why he's happy when he's in deep sleep, because the mind is not functioning. So the question arises, as Buddha told his disciples, that when the mind stops involuntarily in deep sleep, but if it stops voluntarily, you will enjoy that same bliss. So in a way, deep sleep you can learn. Yeah, from the experience of deep sleep, if we are aware or if we are alert, we can learn the import, or we can get convinced about the necessity of meditation or stilling the thought waves of the mind, because it gives immediate joy. Hmm.
Sleep is not a random question. Can we control our sleep as we control thoughts?
Yes, sleep is definitely random for most of us, or you can't uh, go to sleep at will. That is what everyone struggled. But if you see people with very strong willpower, there are instances, especially Swami Vivekananda quoted Napoleon. He was a very busy person. Obviously, he could not go and sleep in the tent. So he had trained his mind to sleep at will. So sometimes he used to sleep while he was riding a horse. They say maybe it's an exaggeration, but he used to use the long rides, to grab a little bit of sleep. That's a popular story about Napoleon. So at will, one can sleep if one's mind is under control, if one is strongly determined. Yeah, there are people, there was one disciple of Holy Mother. Maybe his mind was very pure because there was no complex. He is a very simple, down to earth monk. His name was Ramai Maharaj. We heard from other monks, he is a very senior monk. They say he just, there is one way of going to sleep. You start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that boredom or that will put you to sleep, induce sleep. So about him, it was said that he could hardly count 1 to 3. By the time, if he had decided he would sleep, he'll just fall asleep. So he had that, uh, maybe because his mind was very simple, no complications. The mind was not complex. So whatever he told his mind, now he'll tell him, oh, my mind, go to sleep. He'll go to sleep. That is possible, yes. But it is rare, very rare. We are struggling to control our mind. If the mind is fully under one control, then even they say, Vivekananda says, an hour or half an hour of good meditation is equal to hours of deep sleep. You may not require sleep at all. Finished? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.